Many people have problems with art and not with reality.
So why is art different?
It's pretty simple, right?
This is knowledge, this is thinking, this is thought.
Yeah, it does something strange with your head.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair.
Bring it.
Welcome to the Undergang Armchair. My name is Ando. Yes, well, hello gang. How is everybody? We have yet another fantastic show for you today with the great Albert Elm here to talk. I've actually known Albert for a while now, but I didn't really get to know him until we sat down and had this conversation. And man, it went great. He worked for my friend and nemesis, Jacob Aue Sobol, for a couple of years. So I've known him that way. But of course, I knew he was a photographer, but I hadn't seen much of his work until fairly recently. And if you haven't either, you are in for a treat. It doesn't come as a surprise to me that he's been published on a ton of sites and has been named as a talent to look out for by the British Journal of Photography. But Albert will tell you all about that very shortly. In other news, the podcast is going out into the world again, and this time we're going big. Yes, sir. The 1000 Books Art Book Festival is coming up April 21st through 24th at Charlottenborg here in Copenhagen, and I will be there all weekend recording some live talks with publishers and artists. I will also be manning a small booth for the show, promoting the show and talking some schmack with people. So that's right. This is your chance to say it to my face. Actually, it's going to be really amazing. The program they put together over there is ambitious and excellent, and I can't wait. It's going to be really, really cool. So come check us. The info is up on our site on the page, and I'll get that up on the Face and Twitter soon. The only other thing, if you haven't done it yet, is be sure to check out the Mastering the Art of Contemporary Art show at Kunsthal Aarhus. They've built a really cool website with documentation videos of the TV kitchen they built, art recipes, workshops, and all sorts of other stuff. The show's up until April 17th, but they've made this fantastic website which has tons and tons and tons of cool documentation and interesting content. So be sure to check that out. That'll also be on our site. In my opinion, it's an art show on a completely different level than the most of it. All right, that's it for the news segment. I mean, aside from the fact that I'm having my first solo show in Denmark this summer, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy my compelling conversation with Albert Elm.
It's a good idea. I like the spirit of just jumping right into it as well. Just got from the bus, and I hope that's okay. Not having.
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually, I don't do that much preparation either, because the idea is more that it's just a conversation, kind of see what happens. Mm-hmm. And that kind of, I do a little bit of research, and I was looking at some interviews with you, and it seems like they always ask the same questions.
Often.
Yeah, which is like, okay, in one hand it makes sense because it would be the most natural question to ask. Yeah. But at the same time, I was looking through the interviews and I was like, okay,
You can tell people ask something that's already been asked because sometimes they even ask the same way.
Yeah, totally. So the pressure's on me then to make the right question.
If it's a conversation, then it's equal, I suppose.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously I invited you in here because I've known you for a while. And I've known you through Jacob because we've both worked for Jacob at certain points. And in the beginning, you had no website. You had no. I never could find you. I was always like, "What is that Albert up to?" And then I could never find anything on you. Were you purposely hiding, or were you just kind of like waiting for your moment, or what?
I think I'm probably a bit shy. But I think I also wanted some time to feel that I had something to show with my work, at least. I guess I started to share it with the world in 2012, because then I suddenly felt like this is actually onto something where I think I felt like I was experimenting for quite some times until that.
I think that's important.
Like, for example, just when I started to work with Jacob, I lost all my equipment. So
What happened?
I was on this trip in Eastern Europe, and I got out of a taxi a bit too quick, and it just ran off with all my shit.
That's such a terrible moment.
Yeah, it was really bad. But it ended up being a quite good thing, because then I started working with Jacob, and I got myself this little point-and-shoot camera, and it was just starting from scratch.
That can be
Back
good.
to the point.
And in fact, you not sharing your work until you felt you were ready reminds me that I kept putting work out and then throwing it away. So
Yeah.
if you look at how many versions of a website or online presence I've probably had 10 to 12 different versions, which just means I would finish something, I'd be like, great, this is good. And then 6 months later, I'd be like, oh, wait, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Throw it all out and start over. And it's the same thing. Like you have to feel like you're really ready, and not just on day 1, but on day 25.
Yeah.
You have to really, really.
I think I tried to do that, but luckily I was not technically capable of doing anything. So I had a couple of some good ideas, but I never could fix it. I tried MySpace, but it was too ugly, and
MySpace is fugly.
Yeah. Does it even run anymore? I don't think so.
I think so, but no one uses it.
No.
But I mean, that's the thing. The whole, like, I guess some people use a website as a kind of work in progress sounding board. Stuff comes up and goes down, and other people use it as I'm done. This is it.
Yeah.
And I think I do both. That's why Tumblr exists and these other things, or Instagram or whatever. Those are more for like, oh, this was just today. This was happening now and then.
Yeah. But I have difficulties updating everything I do when I'm doing it.
Well, that's the fucking thing. You have 4 or 5 different channels to work on.
I think it's stressful. Like, I think Instagram is plenty, and I'm not even active enough on that. People keep de-following me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I'm not fresh enough, apparently. I think it's really difficult to keep up with all that. At the same time, you have to be productive.
Yeah.
Like, as some people, they can be out shooting and then they can grasp taking a few pictures with their phone as well. I just have to zone into it, otherwise it...
Right, it can actually take away from the work that you're trying to do. Yeah.
I suppose I was never good at doing more than one thing at a time.
Well, that's a powerful argument for not joining Instagram, because I'm always on the edge. I haven't done it, but I'm kind of like, oh, I could do it. But then... as a film photographer, I believe you're an analog photographer too, right? It makes the steps to get them to Instagram a lot longer if you're going to show that kind of work. Or, like you say, you have to remember to pull out something digital and take a picture of something you were already taking a picture of with a different camera.
Yeah.
And it does kind of pull you out of the moment.
It's a bit ironic being totally instant on Instagram when you decided to follow that analog shooting process which is a very long process, which is getting longer and longer.
Sure is.
Prices is rising, and films are probably going to be hard to get at some point for decent prices anyway.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of way I choose to work, because actually I am very restless, and I like to make everything right now and here and then, and I like to act in an instant. But after trying film, I realized that it was a perfect challenge for me.
So it makes the work better by slowing it down?
Yeah, I think so. Because otherwise I would look at the screen all the time and get confused. That picture, and start to doubt myself. That picture is not good enough, maybe even delete it. And end up being too confused to really be focused.
There is something very straightforward about shooting with film. Although more things can go wrong, you shoot the film, you get it back, and that's fucking it. That's what you have, and you're not going to throw it away. I don't know about you. I never throw negatives away.
No.
But, so it could even sit for 5 years, and then later you come back and you see something else. Whereas, digital stuff has a way of disappearing unless you're really, really good at file keeping.
It's nerve-wracking. I think that's one big part of it, that I think it's scary having everything on a hard drive. Also because I've lost a hard drive on the floor before, and then it stops to work, and then what's up, and you forgot to back it up, and a negative you have there on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah.
But then again, I've so often thought like, yeah, I have a good shot, and then the flash didn't go off, or it was shaking anyway.
That's right.
It just didn't work.
The exposure's wrong, or
I probably messed up a good percentage technically.
Yeah.
Of potentially good images.
But remember, you probably also got some images you didn't think were going to be good.
Yeah.
Based off of the material or some sort of strange reaction or, processing or whatever.
I think so.
I like the chaos. Although you're right, it really, really sucks when you're like, that's the one. And then you get it back and it's underexposed or something went wrong. You're just like, no.
I tried a little bit too many times.
It's part of it.
But I'm starting to, I really am thinking about maybe going digital at some point, because I could just imagine myself being far more productive.
Saving a lot of money.
Being able to work every day, all the time, instantly. But then again, I don't know if that's a good thing for me.
Well, the thing is, the way you work with 35 millimeter, right?
Yeah.
Only 35?
Only. I've tried different things, but it never worked as well.
That would probably, that's the easiest format to replace with digital, I'd say, in terms of quality and kind of similar aesthetic and all that. But you'd have to learn how to use that format to your benefit.
Yeah.
Or else you're just going to end up, I think about, like, for example, when Jacob goes out and does a big project, he comes back with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rolls of film.
Yeah.
And the editing process for that is just insane. And it must be even worse when it's digital, when you literally can shoot anything without ever thinking about, I have to change the roll in a second, or,
I shoot quite a lot on, not as much, obviously, as I would do digitally. But I shoot still quite a lot. On an average trip, I shoot between 3 weeks, between 70 and 120 films.
That is a lot.
So it's still quite a lot, and it's a bit of a journey to get through all that material, just technically, just processing it. When I was in art school, I not did it myself, but I was handling the processing machine myself, and it would take days to get through all the films and scanning all the files, and
fucking
it's just,
nightmare. That's the worst part, the scanning. The scanning is the worst part for me, at least.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, should I scan it all small or should I scan it all big?
Yeah.
Or should I just scan the ones I eyeball? And it can take weeks without even getting anywhere, really.
Yeah. And you get disappointed all the way through the process because you thought you had an idea about what was going on, and then you realize you didn't, and then you get disappointed, and then you get sad, and then you take a break from it, and then you get back into it, and then you realize, wow, there might be something else.
Right. Well, that's both the up and the downside, I guess, at the same time. But that was one of the questions I wanted to touch on, which was the editing process. Because if you shoot that much, how the hell do you make sense of it? Do you have a preconceived notion? Do you know what you're going for? Or is it like fishing with a big net? You see what you have afterwards.
It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
I think the past 2 years, I've had 2 or maybe 3 projects going on. I published a book in 2014 called Elsewhere, which was, I started that idea to as an excuse to start to use my archive more, because I had this main project that I thought was more important, or anyway, that was what I focused on the most. But it was just so frustrating seeing so much material not being used. So I've decided to try to make a different side project, which I want to keep as a series. That book, Elsewhere, maybe volume 1, 2, 3. That's the plan right now. Because it's nice to have an excuse. I'm still looking in my archive once in a while if I don't have anything to do, or if I feel like it. Or
there's a lot of great stuff in an archive.
Yeah,
especially when you put it away for a couple of years and you come back and see it with fresh eyes. And in fact, I deal with the same problem. I have got tons of really great shots that don't fit into some sort of pre-conceptualized project I might be working on or something. And you're kind of like, I don't want to waste this. What am I going to,
And I think it's something that also comes as you develop as a photographer or as an artist or whatever you call yourself. In the beginning, like back to the point of me starting just with a point and shoot camera and not really knowing what I did, it took me quite a while to get to where I am now, like in terms of understanding myself and my aesthetic and and what I want to do with it. So I saw my material differently back then than I would do now. So if I go through it, I can see some potential that I didn't realize was there when I started, which is fun.
It's nice.
It's also important to remember to get something new done, because you can get too comfortable in digging around in your own archive.
But when you say that you work on, in the last period, you've had 2 or 3 different projects. Are these projects that are in progress, you're still shooting, or are they projects which have been shot and you're trying to make sense of?
Both.
Okay.
I'm still trying to make sense of it all, I guess. But the last time I shot on my project, What Sort of Life Is This?, which I'm having published actually soon.
That was the one I saw the book cover for, right?
Yeah. Last time I shot on that was February last year, so February 2015. I haven't been shooting anything for it since. I just had some films processed in Glasgow, 75 films or something. So if there is a very important picture in that deck of films, I might use it, but I like it as it is now.
Yeah. Is that project done when the book is done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then I need to stop it and start something new, I think, which might take a while. I've been thinking about it. I don't know. Should I try to be more specific this time, or should I keep doing what I've been doing?
Well, that's what I think the magic is for a lot of really, like, photographers who are not just good but great. One of the hugest differences is in editing. It's so hard, because if you shoot, let's say, 4,000 shots, you're probably going to have 30 shots which can make a pretty excellent series, or even 50 or even 80 and make a great book. But the question is, which good shots do you leave out because they do not help the narrative, or they do not, they may be too recognizable as a style, or, because I have the problem of falling into the trap where I look at something and I go, this is a beautiful photo, that's in. And it takes me a long time to realize it's beautiful, but so what? And that's that trap.
It's that difficult balance of staying true to your own narrative, whatever that might be, because you can doubt that up and down forever.
You sure can.
and be true to the narrative that other people will see.
Yeah.
Which they probably don't know, or probably not sure of either.
Or read into it completely differently.
Yeah,
anyway.
that's I think the strength and the frustration and the challenge and blah blah with photography. It's that it's so ambiguous, and there are so many different ways of read into everything.
And there's just images everywhere.
And there is images everywhere. And what's the difference between a good one and a bad one? And is it taste? Is it skill? Is it whatever?
Luck.
Mr. Random.
Yeah.
Mr. Random on the hunt.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's my big challenge for the next 5 or 6 years, is learning how to edit both before and after I shoot. Making sure my ideas are sharp before I even begin, and then learning how to continue that process to an even higher level as I go on. Because I used to work very much intuitively, and I think the sad truth is that I'm just not a good enough photographer in that style. I'm much better if I preconceive what I'm doing, what I'm going for, or even create some sort of limitations, because like you said with the film, having a limitation can help steer where the project's going to go. And if you don't have that limitation, maybe there's just too many options.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. Just maybe opposite.
Well, that's the thing. And it's like you say, you work intuitively, and that feels like the right thing to do.
But I know what I mean. If you are just if you're just totally left to your own, what can I say? Totally left to your own imagination, your own head, it can feel like either too busy or too empty sometimes. You don't know what you want out of it.
Yeah. It's easy to go down the wrong path, and it can be hard to go back and go down the right path.
But then again, it could be, for example, calling the project the name of the town you're visiting, or even though that may be a bit easy, but just thinking in that way is already a frame set.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm gonna make a portrait of this town, meet the people. I mean, calling a book Copenhagen would not be about Copenhagen as Copenhagen anyway. It would be about the people you meet and how you interact with it. And
that's absolutely right. And it gives you some sort of direction to go in.
Yeah.
Instead of just wandering. As much as good stuff can come from just wandering, at a certain point, you need to start looking.
Yeah, exactly. And curate things a little bit. I think that's my dilemma with photography. Maybe my biggest one. Probably have a few, but the biggest I can think of right now is to try to find the balance between it being too banal and it being too thought over. Because if it's personally, I'm not necessarily totally bought by some very, very serious thought of conceptual art, historic, correct, blah blah.
I'll say it for you. There's some really boring conceptual art projects. Photo projects. It
doesn't necessarily catch my attention.
Yeah.
But then again, it can also be a bit too random sometimes, and sometimes I'm worried about my own work being it, especially on a bad rainy day. You know, you can look at your own work and think, wow, that's just totally random. What happened?
Yeah.
And then on another day, you think, wow, okay, that's actually something.
Right. Well, it's that space artists live in between crippling self-doubt and, horrendous ego. There's something right in the middle, that sweet spot. Which
and both is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're only an ego and you just ride yourself out, then you're going to crash at some point. But if you don't believe in yourself, and if you're just shy and uncomfortable with everything you do, you're not going to get anywhere either.
You're going to have some reason to fight.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you in art school? Because I went to art school myself, and what it basically was, at least whenever we talked about art, was endless picking apart of art and talking about why. And it was really hard for people who worked intuitively, because you don't write long essays about how you work intuitively. You just go fucking work, and so the format is very tough. Now, if you look in the art world, there's plenty of artists who work intuitively, but then they get someone else to write about it. They don't talk themselves about it because there's really nothing to say in that case. Was it hard for you at art school, that endless discussion?
Yeah, very much. I actually thought about, especially in the end, I thought about dropping out a little bit.
Yeah. Because it's endless.
It wasn't because of the school. It was a good school. Yeah. Glasgow School of Art. I had a really good time there. But personally, I felt that obviously there is a reason why you're in school, because you put yourself there to evolve and to teach yourself something, and I don't know what I expected from it actually.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does when you go into art school. I
think I thought it could make me better, and that's it.
Did it?
I think so, but not necessarily because of. I think what was best for me was put in a situation where I had freedom and time and space to think differently, and not be strangled by all kinds of responsibilities that would like as life is now when you're not in school anymore. There are so many things you have to worry about, which takes the energy away from you to be creative.
That's absolutely right.
I think it did a lot to me, but I also had a problem with everything suddenly having to be so specific. I felt an urge from my tutors to sometimes, not necessarily tutors, but just a general, because it makes sense, you're in school, but like a general urge to put me in some kind of box. Are you a documentary photographer? Are you a art photographer? Are you a documentarian? Are you, what is it that you are?
Yeah.
And you can start to ask that yourself, and then you suddenly start doubting what is it that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it a lot, but sometimes I thought it was a bit And I think I still have that rhythm. Sometimes I just get a really bad taste in my mouth of being creative. I just have to drop it completely, and sometimes I just can't look myself in the mirror. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, photographers and artists are assholes, right? I mean,
yeah. Sometimes I just think, this is ridiculous. I have to do something serious with my life, and then I don't think about photography for a while. And then suddenly I really miss it. Like now, for example, spring, I feel like doing something.
Yeah.
But it comes and goes.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing that happens is, like, in a way you're just compelled. You can't, no one would recommend being an artist. No one would be like, hey, I've got a great idea for the rest of your life. How about 99% chance of grinding poverty, 1% chance of everything going great, and crippling self-doubt for the rest of it?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a career path, right?
No, it's challenging.
It's just because, I mean, in a way, you just can't help it, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And you have to accept that fact. But yeah, art school was I loved it. It was great. Also, being in a different town for a while, and
right, it helps to get away.
Yeah, it started something.
Yeah. Well, it's, in a weird way, as stupid as it sounds, you do admit to yourself that you're taking yourself seriously when you go to a school like that, and you enter a program which says you're going to make art full time, and all you're going to do is work on this.
Yeah.
And in a way, that's like, as stupid as art school may seem, for the most of us who have a hard time with, am I really doing this? Am I not doing this? What's going on? It's the start of a path of saying, okay, I am going to do this.
Yeah.
And that can be tremendous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's, especially in the last year, when I was in my 4th year, and you have to write your essay, and you have to sit down and reflect kind of what happened and what you wanted out of it and everything. It's sort of the first time you realize, because all the other years are just playful. You just have fun and you explore, and you don't really realize what's in the other end.
Right.
And then you suddenly realize, wow, this is actually something I choose to do with my life, kind of. This is, I mean, I didn't go to university, I went to art school. It's kind of, it's got to be a matter of time before it's too late to turn around.
Yeah.
Which is exciting.
Yeah.
But
well,
also,
what you're saying is that I accept the uncertainty. I love doing this so much, I will accept the uncertainty of knowing whether it'll at all work out. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is the big difference. I just heard a great saying the other day that artists, normal people go to work to earn money. Artists earn money to go to work.
Yeah.
And that struck me as pretty true in a lot of ways. Like, the only reason you get money is to get some freedom to make some goddamn work.
Yeah.
And
then hopefully one day it turns around.
Yeah, if you're lucky, all that fucking money you put into it.
Yeah.
But that is the difference, because you talk about art.
It's important not to think too much about that, I guess.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also have to remember, because there's so much talk now about art being a career. You have to be professional. You have to be career oriented. You have to network, and all that stuff is absolutely true. But it's not the same as being a door-to-door salesman.
No,
it isn't.
No, and you can tell that there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on in the creative world in general. It's been commercialized very much.
Sure, it's a lot of money now.
Yeah, and it's making it a bit slick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, which I think you can tell in Copenhagen a little bit. I mean, one thing I really liked about being in Glasgow is there is this kind of grassroots attitude towards being an artist, and it's fairly easy to get by on a part-time job, and you can easily create some work, and people have artist studios around town, and there is a lot of small openings all the time. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
A lot of like art going on. And this really nice, loose attitude towards it. Where in Copenhagen, sometimes I feel it's a bit tight, it's a bit official, it's a bit, people wear their nice clothes, and it's kind of like, it's a bit of a tight atmosphere around it sometimes that I think is a bit makes me anxious a little bit. Like it's a bit too serious.
I mean, isn't that a cultural thing though? Isn't that kind of Copenhagen?
I suppose we're a bit serious, but it was really nice to experience in Glasgow how everything is just a whir.
Yeah,
a bit more.
Yeah.
Easy.
It's the same in Chicago. I went to school in Chicago, and it was a lot more. I mean, I think that's also a natural thing that happens when there isn't so much money in the system. Because when money comes, then things get more professional.
Yeah.
Which is either good or bad, slick, not slick, whatever. But when there's no money, it's only people who really want to who take part. Mm-hmm. And they don't expect anything in return, which changes the stakes entirely.
Yeah.
You know, and I think there's some of that here, but there isn't nearly as much.
I don't mind both. I think it's okay that there is some kind of, far up there on the mountain somewhere, kind of gap. I don't mind that too much. I think it's okay that, not that I like his work necessarily, but it's okay that there isn't a Jeff Koons. It's okay that there is a Dave Million-Hurst. And it's okay that there is this letter, but it's just a problem when it kind of shadow too much over the other part of it.
Right. The middle step is kind of obscure.
Yeah. If people get too used to think of art as like a dead serious thing, it kind of kills the creativity, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like in a way from some of the research I did that you kind of realized somewhat early that you weren't going to go the traditional route. I saw, or at least someone said, that you had dropped out of high school, and that you had started shooting at a pretty young age. Did you have any sort of thoughts about that being something you wanted to do then?
I think it came a little later. I started to use a camera quite early, maybe when I was 12, 13, just because I was bored at family gatherings and I was bored a lot in general. So it was a good thing to run around and do. And I don't think I thought of photography being like a part of me before later. It was just like kind of a hobby. All the other boys played football and I wasn't good at that, so I found a camera. I didn't really dig that deep into it. But then when I dropped out of high school, I realized this is actually what I think I want to do with my life, or at least I want to check it out more.
Why'd you drop out of high school?
Because it wasn't me.
Fuck this place.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I got too... I wasn't bothered about making my homework, and I wasn't really bothered about it. And then in the end, I just had a bad feeling in my stomach every day I went to school. It was just... And then I realized this is probably something you have to listen to and do something about. And when I mentioned it to my mother, she was like, "Oh, I'm surprised you didn't mention it earlier."
She saw it in you, huh?
Yeah.
Where were you in the world at that point?
In Svendborg, South Denmark.
Okay, yeah.
But there weren't a lot of options to play with photography down there either. So I decided to go out and sail.
Right. Yeah, what's up with that?
With
sail?
This training ship, Geostage.
Is that one of the student ships?
Yeah, we have two.
For becoming a professional maritime...
what do you call it in English?
I guess it would just be a sailor.
A sailor, you could just call that a sailor, yeah.
Huh. So you were thinking, I'm going to be a big bad sailor man and get an anchor
I don't think
tattoo?
I was thinking that in the big... I did think about it at some point. When I was out there, I thought like, wow, I could do a career in sailing and this is great. And the freedom is great.
Yeah.
Just being out there and you lose sense of time and it's lovely.
Yeah.
It suited me very well. But I think when I got back to Copenhagen, it still was photography that was dragging me the most. So I decided to start at Fata Morgana. And that's probably where it all started to be a bit more serious.
Yeah. Did you work for Jacob at that point, or did that?
It started a little bit later.
Okay.
I went to Fata Morgana, and then when I was done with that, I decided to sail a little more because I had a debt, and I wanted to pay it off, which I didn't manage to do. But I sailed a little more.
Yeah.
And then Morten Bo put me and Jacob in contact, and then we started to work together. Or I started working for him.
Right. So for people who don't know, Fata Morgana is a private photo school here, probably the biggest, most important photo school in Denmark, I'd say.
For that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and Morten Bo's the director. And Jacob also is a graduate. Jacob Aue Sobol is also a graduate of the program. But what was it like going to Fata Morgana?
It was good. I think maybe I was a bit too young. I don't know.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was too young when I went to art school.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do.
I don't know if I was too young or I mean, you can't really... It's hard to say in retrospect.
It's a matter of experience, right? It's not age, it's experience.
Where have I been now if I didn't go to Fata Morgana at that age?
Sure.
Would I have been different? Sure. Probably. Would I have gotten more out of Fata Morgana starting there later? Been a bit more mature? I don't know.
But that's all part of it, really.
Yeah. I think somehow it was a really good time for me to do it.
Is it
I've done quite a lot
program or...
No, I was only there for 5 months.
Oh,
4
okay,
months.
so it's mega. It's really short.
It's really short. I should have. It was my plan to be there longer, but I couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Private schools.
Yeah. But I think that has been like, I'm quite used to that. I've always been the youngest. Also, when I was on the training ship, I was much younger than everyone else. I was only 16. I turned 17 on board, and
that's pretty wild.
Everyone else were, from 24 and up to 30.
Wow.
So I don't know. Maybe that's just been. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But then you started working for Jacob, which is like a school in and of itself, really.
Yeah, it was a schooling.
I mean, I've worked several times. The most I've ever learned about what I do is been from working in industries related to it. So either working for photographers or working in a camera store. I worked in a camera store for many years. Yeah. And, we sold tons of used equipment, which means I can pretty much figure out how any camera works. I never learned that in school.
No.
And like maybe they have one 4x5 and one medium 4x5.
All the small things that you would never think about. That's the most important things I think, right?
Yeah. And working in framing has taught me the most about the art world and how that works. So school is good, but it's only the first step, really.
Yeah.
So I imagine for you, working for Jacob is kind of a big changer.
Yeah, it was also because I was, again, very young. And, I'm still young. I'll be young for a while then.
You'll be young till you're old.
Yeah. But I was very young and, even though I went to Fata Morgana, it was still, photography was still like playful to me. Still kind of like a game, was playing around with it. And it wasn't until I met Jacob, I realized that it's also something that, you can, like, it's a serious thing. It's not only a game. It's not only playful. It's not only whatever. It's.
Well, I mean, that man works harder than almost anybody I know.
Yeah, I haven't met anyone like him.
It's pretty insane how much he works.
Which taught me something as well.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Wait, how long did you work for him?
On and off, I think 2 years altogether.
Okay.
But spanning over almost 3, I think.
Yeah.
I don't remember quite.
That's about right. You don't want to do more or less. You want to be in there for a while, and then you also got to say,
Yeah. Yeah, I got to the point where I thought, well, now it's time to try something else. I also got really tired of Copenhagen, and I don't know. It's just been a big part of me my parents are divorced, and they were divorced quite early in my life. So I think being on the go has it's a very, very important part of my being. Staying somewhere for too long drives me nuts. That's why I just got back from Jutland now as well. Sometimes I just have to
just get it out of here,
get out and move. And I think that has been I think that is my photography, more or less. The urge to get out and feel myself, because I think I feel myself more when I'm out. Like city, any city, it just completely drags me down over time. I have to go out and do something at some point. And I think that's why it's been important for me to always go on adventures. Like, for example, going out sailing or traveling, or I've been hitchhiking quite a bit when I was younger, and always try to stimulate myself in that sense.
Does that come naturally, or is it something you have to push yourself to do?
Both. I think it comes quite naturally, or at least it did when I was younger and more naive, but it's something you did and you didn't realize what you were doing.
Yeah.
But it's different now, I think.
Yeah.
Also, you just don't pack your bag on a Tuesday and go out to the highway and hitchhike unless you have saved up some money, or a friend is renting your room, or you could afford a nice jacket so you don't get cold, or whatever, you know.
Like you said earlier, there's real life shit to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the dividing lines between a lot of hobby artists and professional artists is being able to manage everything else life throws at you and still.
That's the challenge.
Work. Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen you carry a camera. And so it seems like what you do is, like, in your daily life, you're not so much, you were working for Jacob, you were doing whatever, you didn't have a camera on you. But then you go out and shoot 100 rolls over 3 weeks.
Yeah. And
then put it away again.
I would like to change that again, because it used to be different. I used to carry a camera all the time. I still do, but like a pocket camera in my pocket. I think it plays a big role that I was robbed once,
right?
With my camera out on the outside of my jacket, and now I just really feel uncomfortable having a camera around my neck. It's weird. I mean, I know it's not a rational thing. It's not like I'm scared of being robbed again, because I know what the chances are, but it's just a little scar in my mind.
Yeah.
I hate walking around with. I even don't like walking next to someone who has a camera around it just screams, I think.
It just you just associate it with that event.
Yeah, or just I don't like the attention that it drags to you. I don't like the I am different position I'm being put in, and I still struggle with that when I'm out photographing. I don't like being that very specific character,
being between you and the subject.
Yeah, or kind of like, but that's just me overthinking everything. But what are natural. You, Mr. Privileged tourist, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, I struggle a lot with using the camera as a tool sometimes, but it's just sometimes I just forget it and I enjoy it.
Well, like you say, it's intuitive. You have to kind of get into the moment. Instagramming can pull you out of the moment, which means that it doesn't just come. It's something you have to build up. It's something you have to work yourself into, and it comes and it goes.
Yeah, I think it really is a state of mind, especially when you're in the shooting process. When I'm in the shooting process, it takes quite a while to get into it. What it is, I'm not quite sure, but you need to warm up, and you need to. It has a lot. It's kind of like a game you have with yourself, a confidence game, I suppose,
or some sort of weird dance with the camera, with the machine, which you have to like kind of reckon with in some sense and become not friends with, but not some sort of partner with.
I think I feel pretty much in charge over my camera. Like, that's my dog. That doesn't make me worried, but the challenge I have with myself is much bigger. Like my confidence and my self-esteem and everything I have when I have a camera in my hand.
So when you're shooting, you're thinking, "What the fuck am I doing?" Or
kind of, or if I want to take someone's portrait and I get rejected, that's a deep cut. Like it's just. And that's the dance I dance with myself when I'm out with a camera. Totally psychological. If everything goes well and it's a nice day and you have had some good contacts with people and everything is going well, you can be completely surfing on confidence and it's good. Not that it makes any good pictures. I'm not saying that, but just in contrast to if you get your confidence broken somehow in the beginning of the day. It's really hard to drag you up again, and you walk around in the streets in some foreign city and you don't know anyone, you don't know what's around the corner, you are just there by yourself with your camera, having your personal mission of doing what. I think that can be really challenging, but it's also what's magical.
It sounds like it's something to do with vulnerability too.
Yeah, I think so.
With being kind of like open enough, but not too far open that something can damage you.
Yeah.
You know, like finding some sort of weird little door where you're in that in-between state.
And again, it's not a rational thing. It's not, I'm in a bad neighborhood, I should watch out, maybe I should hide my camera. That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
It's your own head that's just dancing and playing with you.
Well, let's talk about some of the work, because I looked. You do have a website now, which is good. That's nice. And you have 2 series and a book on there, right? You have the Everyday and then Fish Out of Water.
But they're two projects together now. It's all going to be published in What Sort of Life Is This?
Okay.
But I just haven't updated that.
So that's kind of an interesting question, because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about projects. It seems like there's some fluidity between your work. You know, what I was going to ask was, what's the difference between the 2 projects on your website? And I think you just answered. There isn't necessarily a difference between them.
There were in the beginning. In the beginning, for quite a while, I thought it was different things. But I've been working on this project, which was, I thought, as being very much my own life and my own environment, everyday life, people I met, etc. And then I went on a trip with Jacob on the Trans-Siberian, and I told myself that this is supposed to be a different thing, and I wanted to try to be a different photographer. I wanted to. It's a few years ago now.
How so? How different?
Just try something else, like be one who be an extrovert instead of an introvert, like try to reach out in the world and be a documentary photographer. You know, I played with that idea, and I wanted to try that, but then I could see on my behavior that I wasn't doing anything different. I was just in a different town.
Yeah.
So I realized slowly that it didn't matter. And now I'm even more sure that it doesn't matter. So I decided to make it into one.
And that you are what you are, and the way you work is the way you work, and that's just it.
Yeah. For now.
Yeah.
For now. Until I finish this thing, yes.
Yeah.
Which I will in this year.
And then what? You're making a cut and then moving on.
Maybe I'm going to start to paint.
Ceramics. I recommend ceramics.
Yeah. Installation or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
probably not. Probably not. I'm probably going to stay with photography, but I don't want to. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to start to paint. Probably going to keep taking pictures.
Seems like you can't help yourself.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. But it's growing in me. This feeling of dividing it. For long periods of time, I don't photograph at all. I don't use my camera. They run out of battery and collect dust. And then being a photographer is something completely different for me. Yeah. Try to play with the pictures and edit and imagine what it could be like in a book. Imagine the book as a form. And I'm having this book published maybe late this year or the first months of 2017. So it's quite interesting chapter to get into and try to imagine it as an object suddenly.
All right.
One thing is the narrative. I've been working on that for quite a while and still doubt it. Will always probably doubt it a little bit because it's ambiguous and it's supposed to be that's the balance of it. But it's interesting now to imagine it as a finished piece, an object.
Can't do anything about it once that book's published.
And it's suddenly much more concrete because, a lot of pictures sometimes on a wall, mostly on a hard drive, sometimes printed, sometimes on an exhibition. It's still pretty abstract, but when you make a book, it feels like it all comes together as something more concrete,
right?
Which is a nice experience.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's a good way to put a period at the end of a sentence. To say, okay, whatever this is like so. You're going. There isn't. As much as you can keep working with the material or do other things, that's kind of it. It's fixed. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to seeing some of your paintings.
Yeah, me too. I'm thinking more and more about it, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I think that...
Not that I have no experience with painting at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
There's no reason not to.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, there's really literally no reason
Francis
not to.
Bacon started quite late, as far as I know.
Sure. Sure.
I don't know.
It's all part of that weird process, which is the life of someone who works creatively.
Yeah. Also, that's how I think of photography. That's back to art school. It's something I've struggled with a lot in art school. I think it was a bit disappointing, and I think that's a problem with photography in general. Actually, maybe still, that there is so many expectations to what a photograph is. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you walk into an exhibition and you deal with paintings, maybe I'm completely wrong. That's a possibility, but I feel that there is not the same expectations in terms of why.
Right.
What is that? Like a photograph. I don't know if it's if people blindly still trust a photograph as a document, or if photography is the truth, or
totally.
if photography is,
Well, it doesn't come from nothing. That's the thing. A photograph is a mechanical document of something, and I don't mean a document in any sort of sense of truth, but it comes from capturing something or affixing light onto a light sensitive surface, whereas a painting is literally from nothing.
Yeah.
And so you have no responsibility to any sort of...
Which is magical.
It is. And it is. I mean, I took a philosophy of art class in college, and there was a philosopher, I don't remember his name, who argued that there's no way photography can ever be art because it doesn't come from nothing. And I was so mad, and I was debating the teacher endlessly about it, but I couldn't, the argument was sound, that it will never come from your soul, your heart, your mind, whatever it is, because it is tangentially related to the world in that sense.
Walter Benjamin and all that, the age of mechanical reproduction. And
right.
I've been through that in art school as well. And
it makes it makes the narrative different. Like you say, people expect something when they look at a photograph, and just look at the poor World Press photos, what they're trying to deal with truth. Yeah. Journalistic truth in photography. You're fucked. Right now, there's no way to tell the truth. There never was, but even more now, no way to tell the truth with photography.
Yeah, it's crazy. Maybe maybe that's the single one excuse, World Press photo, to have somewhere where photography is not manipulated with. Maybe that's that one category that's going to survive,
right.
Not manipulated.
Right.
Although I can understand that. I mean, that's all right, but I wouldn't ever want to play with my own photography that way, because I'm not. If that's being a photographer, I'm not a photographer. I'm a picture maker. I don't care.
What do you mean, playing with truth or manipulation or what?
Truth.
Yeah.
Like, I've been asked quite a few times, like I have had discussions with people. Would you want to move something in a picture, and or even cropping is still a problem for someone, which I really can't wrap my head around. Why that would be a problem for someone, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Like, why would you give a shit? Sorry, but Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
I'm not trying to show off. Like, look how good I can shoot from the hip and still compose a good picture. I mean, that's not it for me. I think it's interesting to make a nice image,
Right.
and I think that other half is conservative and a stick in the wheel. I think
They're
it's
losing. I mean, I think that's why why the fight is so intense, because
I don't know if it's a game, but yeah.
Well, it's just you can't. You'd never. I mean, they've talked many 100 years ago about how photography isn't the truth, and it's not getting any easier to represent as the truth, but it's still accepted in court. You show images of the crime scene, of people doing something. In the newspaper, all those images are purported to be true, etc., etc. It's based off of a level of acceptance of truth and fact, which it was more than a painting, but still not like experience.
No.
But do you see any sort of, in your work, is there any sort of attempt to document, or is it more you're making pictures out of scenes?
That's a good question. I think even if I didn't want to, I am documenting because I am dealing with a piece of reality, whether I want it or not. And I am interested in the fact of documenting, because why would I find it more interesting to go to India and take a picture instead of just going down the block on this street? I suppose it has something to do with me being curious about different cultures and different ways of being human, and etc., etc. So I suppose I do document what I feel and how I see something. But it's a good question, because I've thought a lot about it myself. It's like I mentioned earlier. I went on this on this trip with Jacob, and I thought I was gonna be this. I felt like trying to be a more traditional documentary photographer, and I think I tried to, but I just got carried away in the same way I have done before, and you kept taking these weird pictures, and it felt like going weird places. So I suppose that's the difference. A documentarian, image maker, a funny mix, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's that inherent visual, vision of truth that's built in photography that you can't avoid, really. Even as even if you're taking out of focus abstract images, it's not the same as painting a picture.
No. And it is a truth, because it's the truth of how I felt, and it's the truth in terms of what I wanted to depict from that scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a good way to wrap things up. The question becomes, what is art for you personally? What is it for? Why do you do it? What purpose does it serve?
Yeah,
I know it's the worst question in the world.
No, it's a good one.
I always say it to the end.
It's the one we ask ourselves a bit too often, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's hard to make it a short one, I think photography has, without sounding too eccentric, photography have probably been a good friend to me that I traveled through life with so far since I was 12, which has changed now. I think now photography is it's probably a bad thing, but now there is way too many options in photography, way too many possibilities in photography. It can feed a family, it can create an exhibition, it can be shown on a billboard, commercials. But you don't think about that when you're 12. I think there's many different reasons why I got so excited about it, but I think I had a very chaotic life, and I think somehow I loved walking out with a tripod at night, and I took ugly night photographs. But I think photography was a way for me to slow down time when I thought it was all passing by too quick. Even when I was a child, I thought sometimes things was flying a bit too fast.
I think that's perfect.
On the other hand, sometimes if it's not fast enough, it can drag you out into the world and give you an excuse to, I don't know,
to not stay,
to knock on someone's door or go into a bad neighborhood, or or act weird.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more okay being weird with a camera than being weird without anything.
It is some sort of excuse for behavior, right?
Yeah, in
a strange way, some
kind of a shield.
Do you have any sort of relationship to the viewers, or is it more? Sometimes
it really depends. Some subjects sound so. Some people in my pictures are my good friends, or some people I meet in the street.
But I'm thinking more about your audience. When you publish a book, whoever's going to buy this book, enjoy this book, collect this book, do you ever think about them?
Yeah, I think about them a lot. I think it becomes when a book is, I think maybe in general, when a book is out there, it's not your book anymore. That's right. And I think a lot about that in the editing as well. I talked with a photographer once about narrative, and it was quite interesting. I think it changed my perspective of it a little bit, because you sometimes you have this very strong about your narrative being it. But then he mentioned, yeah, but no, you can try as hard as you want to make it your narrative. No matter how hard you try, it's gonna be someone else's when they open the book. I can do whatever I can to try to create some kind of a framework, try to create some sort of a rhythm, maybe guide people through it in a way that I like, introduce them to certain things that I made a decision about. But it's always going to be their story. Right. And I think that's the strength. So that's why I also hesitate to explain everything too much, which again is a balance, because if you don't explain anything, a lot of people will judge it as being random and the easy way out and cheap excuse and etc. There is many. But I think it's just stronger when you can leave people their peace to read your thing their way.
Right, and to put it into their lives.
Yeah.
To fit it into some sort of their own narrative.
Yeah.
Because you can't come to anything neutral.
Exactly. It's your own adventure, I think, and that's how I got into photography myself as well. Like, I got this book in Berlin when I was there in 7th grade, just called the 20th Century of Photography, or opposite. And I couldn't read German really well, so for me it was just a thick book with old pictures in it, and I think it was good. I would have small pieces of paper, and I would have it in my school bag, and I would sit and read it or look through it in the school bus on my way home. And I think that was just a huge world opening up. And I think that world became strong because I didn't read the text.
Right. You just interacted with the images.
Yeah, and also some of the photographers that I'm really into today is not photographers who's bound to text work. Like, for example, the people who taught me the most was probably Dido Moriyama and William Eggleston and Stephen Shaw and
right. People who are telling a specific story.
Yeah, or maybe what they're telling us is living life. What does it look like in
the bigger picture?
Yeah. Or Gary Winogrand when he says, like, my work is what does life look like through a camera, And it sounds so banal, but I don't think it is.
Yeah.
Like, William Eggleston is one of my, obviously, like many others, huge inspirations, and he's been okaying it a lot for me. Like, he's, back to the back to the thing of what's random and what's not. You know, when his big solo exhibition came out in MoMA, you know, people thought it was boring and banal, and
color photography was literally not art.
People didn't get it, and I think that's a photographer and writer, Paul Graham. He wrote a really interesting text piece, I think, on it called "The Unreasonable Apple," which is about this way of dealing with photography. You know, why do we need something that's very, very specific and bound to art history and conceptual, and to accept it as something that can give us something we can hang up in a gallery? Why do we need that? You know what? And I think it's funny that there is this attitude and this tendency to claim that kind of photography is banal because it's dealing with life in such a direct way, and who can judge whether or not life is banal? I don't know myself what the meaning of life is. So as long as I don't know that, I think that direct attitude towards this kind of photography will not be the banal.
It's a really good place to leave it, I think. We got to get you out of here. You got to go to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it's the greatest answer to the question we've been skirting around this whole time. Why is it worth it?
Yeah.
And the answer is it's worth it, or the answer could be it's worth it because we don't know the answer.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know what the point is.
No, it's like playing Besserwisser when you know all the answers to it. It's like if when you know,
right,
or some kind of Trivial Pursuit, if you know all the cards in the game, it wouldn't be funny to play. I think, would it? Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think so. Not for very long, at least.
No, it's the adventure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Albert.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it.
It was nice.
All right, that was Albert. Check him out there. There'll be links to his stuff on our site. That's good shit, right? I had a great conversation with him. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Undergang Armchair. The intro and outro music was kindly provided by Johnny Ripper, and today's interstitial music was provided by Cesus. You can find links to their music and tons of other conversations with great people on our TV kitchen of a website, undergang.net. If you like this show, we would appreciate it if you'd take a second to leave a review on iTunes so others can find us. This show is produced in part with the kind support of the Danish Arts Council. Thank you so much for joining us. See you at Charlottenborg on the 22nd and 23rd of April.
Bye.